This is our Sunday School lesson for Father's Day, June the 15th of 2025, as we continue our series on risk takers. In a sense, kind of the joy, the life of walking in faith with God. And we'll look at Rahab today from Joshua chapter 2 and then Joshua chapter 6 as well. Notice we have 1 through 4a and then 8 through 14. I've done the whole 1 through 14. And then those last few verses there that we find in Joshua chapter 6. So let's take a look at these verses, and most of us know the Rahab story. Joshua, son of Nun, he is the one who has now taken over after Moses, as we talked about last week. Moses had passed away without being able to go into the promised land. Joshua is the successor of Moses, whom God is also with, and he will lead his people into the promised land. So Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 men as spies from Acacia Grove, saying, "Go and scout the land, especially Jellico." Now, we know that Moses sent 12 spies into the promised land, a person from each of the tribes, the 12 tribes, and when they went and came back, they all agreed it was a beautiful land. But 10 said, "We can never take it because there are people in there that are like giants to us, and they have huge fortified walls around their cities." Only Joshua and Caleb said, "Well, we have God with us. We can certainly take that city." And so Joshua was probably hoping for a little bit better report from these 2 spies. He wanted them to especially look at Jellico. Jellico was at a good location for crossing the Jordan River. And it was a very strategic city. Now, once you crossed over into Jellico, there were 3 roads that headed up north, and so that gave you access to the hill country. You could also have roads that go down to the south, so it was a good place to stage for your next part of the journey. So it was a good first place to go. So the 2 of them left, and they came to the house of a woman, a prostitute named Rahab, and stayed there. Of all the places in Jellico, this would probably be the one that would arouse the least suspicion. You know, we have travelers. There are not very many inns in that day and time, and the inns that might be available are not necessarily clean. They're not necessarily the safest place to be. And so if there is a local prostitute, staying at her home is perhaps the best thing to do. And so, probably with people traveling through and people who live in Jellico, then she gets a lot of business coming through there. So it's a good place for them to go. Again, we don't have any idea that these 2 spies try to have sexual relations with Rahab or with any other women who might be there. This is just a good, safe place to stay after they have looked around at the city. And since they have been doing that, that's probably aroused enough suspicion as to where they are and who they are and where they've come from and what they're looking for. The king of Jellico was told, because these 2 spies are going to be noticed. They're walking around the city. They're looking around at the city walls. They probably are kind of casing out the soldiers that are there. And so the king is told by his advisors and by other soldiers, "Look, some of the Israelite men have come here tonight to investigate the land." Some of those Israelites that we have heard about as they are coming toward us, they've come in there and they're looking around. And I don't know that we want them looking around. Then the king of Jellico sent word to Rahab, and notice this is where he first sends word. This is where he suspects that they're going to be spending the night. And he said, "Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, for they came to investigate the entire land. These men, I'm sure, have come to your house to stay. You need to bring them out so that we can arrest them, find out why they were here, and probably execute them as well, because they don't have any business being in here looking around at our defenses." But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She has hidden them really as kind of treasures, that not just, we'll just hide here in the closet. No, she really has hidden them very well. So she said, "Yes, the men did come to me, but I didn't know where they were from." No, yeah, they did come here. I mean, you sent people to the right place. They came here to my house as a prostitute. At nightfall, when the gate was about to close, the men went out, and so dusk was forming. They had their robes on, maybe something over their head, and they kind of snuck out of the city before the gates were closed. And I don't know where they were going. I don't know if they were going to another city to check that out, which direction they were going. Chase after them quickly, and you can catch up with them. Since they've left, and I don't know where they're going, just send some soldiers out there, because you can kind of cover the roads that they may have gone, and you can certainly find them. So, and of course, the king, I'm sure, does that. He sends some soldiers out, and they're going to be scouring the land. Before the men fell asleep, she went up on the roof, and that's where she had hidden them, and said to them, "I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that dread of you has fallen on us, and everyone who lives in the land is panicking because of you." She's aware of what's going on. The king is aware of what's going on, too. The king knows there is this massive group of people that is moving up toward his land. And again, if we're thinking of them having a little over 600,000 men who are able to fight, you've got at least 2 million people, with women and children and older adults too. That's a huge group migrating into your land. And in the land of Canaan, when it's not always a good harvest, that's a scary proposition. If these many folks come in here and settle in here, what are we going to do for food? The land can only support so many. And we know in our day and time, too, people are concerned about migrants. And maybe can our land take, how many can our land take without being overwhelmed by that? And so, we're accustomed to that. That's kind of the history of our nation, isn't it? With people moving in and moving out to the west and displacing other peoples. And that's just kind of what happens as folks immigrated from Europe and then from Asia as well, and from Mexico now and other places, and kind of move into a land that is an inviting land, a land where there is freedom, a land where there is opportunity. And again, this is the land that God has promised to give to his people. And so they probably have heard this too, the king has. And so Rahab has too. I mean, she probably hears more almost than the king does, because she has all these travelers who come through, and they are telling these stories. Some of them probably have seen this huge host of Israel camped on the eastern side of the Jordan River. And so she's being very upfront with them. This people are really panicking because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 Amorite kings you completely destroyed across the Jordan. We've heard those stories. Now, we've heard about how your God brought you out of slavery in Egypt, let you cross the Red Sea on dry ground, and then as you have moved closer to our territory and there were those who were up against you, you defeated them soundly. And we know that with the massive army you have, we're just kind of next in line. So people are scared to death of what's going to happen. When we heard this, we lost heart, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. She was saying basically, it is clear that your God is not just some idol that we worship, hoping that they'll bring rain to the land, hoping that the crops will grow. This is a God who clearly can control far more than just the rain coming in. He is a God who has brought you out of a foreign nation in miraculous ways. He has helped you defeat other armies that stood in your way, and he is bringing you to the land that he has promised you. we know this is not a God like the gods that we serve here. This is another kind of God altogether. And she recognizes the power of that God, the fact that if there's any Lord out there of all the gods, this one has to be it. No, this is the one, the only one who deserves to be worshipped, the only one who is real. Now, she says, please swear to me by the Lord that you will also show kindness to my family, because I showed kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father, mother, brothers, and sisters, and all who belong to them, and save us from death. I know that you're going to come in here. I know that you're going to take this city. And having seen what you've done to the Amorites, I know you're going to do that here too. But because I have been kind to you, when I certainly could have turned you in and just taken my chances like the rest of the city, I didn't do that, because I think that you and your God are destined to take this city in this land. And I think this is where my faith needs to be now. So please show kindness to me like I have shown kindness to you. The men answered her, we will give our lives for yours. If you don't report our mission, we will show kindness and faithfulness to you when the Lord gives us the land. And so she knows that this is their God, and if they're going to swear by anything, they're going to swear by their God. And she wants them to do that. No, I want you to swear by your Lord, who has become my Lord too, that you're going to show kindness to me. And they do. They say, well, yes, we will show kindness to you. And we will swear and give our lives if we don't. Now, between that period and what we have here in chapter 6, we know what takes place. We know the army comes, and first of all, is before the men leave, she's able to let them out through a window. Her home is built into the city wall. She lets them out a window, and they tell her two things. One, get all of your family into your house that you want to have saved. And the second thing is, mark your house by putting a scarlet thread, a scarlet rope, out through the window so we will know, and we will also let our troops know that this is a house not to be messed with. And she swears that she will do that, and she does. And then the army comes, and they march around the city of Jellico, and the walls come a-tumbling down, and they move into the city, taking the city. And then we move into verse 22. Joshua said to the two men who had scouted the land, go to the prostitute's house, and bring the woman out of there, and all who are with her, just as you promised her. Now, you're the two who know specifically where that house is, and you know to be looking for that scarlet thread. The rest of us might miss that, especially in their joy of the city walls coming down and their excitement in going in and taking the city. You know where she is for sure, and we want to save her as you promised her. So the young men who had scouted went in and brought out Rahab and her father, mother, brothers, and all belonged to her. They brought out her whole family and settled them outside the camp of Israel. So they kept their word. She kept her word. She didn't turn them in. She hid them because she was understanding the power of their God. And her faith, who knows what she believed in before this time. Certainly probably some of the gods that were there in the land of Canaan. But she has now switched. She has taken a big risk, hasn't she? Because if the king's soldiers had barged into her house anyway, not listening to her, and searched the place and found those two men, Rahab probably would have lost her life too. It's like all those families that protected Jews from the Nazis during World War II and during the Holocaust there. So many of them who had hidden individuals lost their lives when those Jews were found. So they keep their promise, and they bring her out, and they keep her safe as really part of Israel. She's kind of outside the camp, but she is part of their nation. They burned up the city and everything in it. But they put the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. Now, of course, what we find out is not everybody does that, because Achan is the one who keeps some of the stuff, because it looks just too nice. He's going to enrich himself when they take the city of Jellico. And, of course, he is going to be dealt with, as will his entire family. But the rest of the city, as the author is trying to let us know, the rest of the city is just destroyed. The only people to get out, and that includes Achan too and what he takes, the only people to get out are Rahab and her family. And then we come to the last verse to look at. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute, her father's household, and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent to spy on Jericho. Because she had done a good deed, she had transferred her faith, she had taken a risk and protected those two spies. And she lives in Israel to this day. Was she still alive when the author wrote this? Did Joshua write this down? Maybe so. Certainly those who belonged to her household, the succeeding generations, were still in Israel. She really had become part of Israel. There's an old tradition that says that Rahab married Joshua. And that's a nice romantic story. Who knows if it's true or not? But it's an old tradition. And if she married Joshua, she really did become part of Israel. But we know her from the New Testament, don't we? I mean, I think it is in Matthew's Gospel that he's given the genealogy of Jesus from Abraham. And Matthew includes 4 women, none of whom are Israelites. He includes Tamar, who was not an Israelite. He includes Rahab here. He includes Bathsheba as well. And, I'm just forgetting who the other one is right off the top of my head. Oh, it's Ruth. That's right. The great-grandmother of David. And he includes all of those. And then in Hebrews, when they list his wonderful list of those who were great faithful individuals, it starts with Abraham, but it's good old Rahab in there, and the faith that she showed, transferring her allegiance to God. And so she lives on, doesn't she? And so this last verse probably says more than it really intended to say. She doesn't live on just in her descendants that might still be part of Israel in our day and time, but she lives on as an example of faith, and recognizing that whatever God she had served, they were nothing compared to the God that the Israelites served. And so she switched her allegiance. She took a great personal risk, but she also was then able to protect those spies and to care for Israel as well as they moved into the promised land. Let's join together in prayer. Father, how thankful we are for the example of Rahab, the courage that she showed, the personal courage, and also the realization that she had that the gods that she served, whatever they might have been, whoever they might have been, were simply false. That the one who was the Lord of heaven and earth below, that was the only God worth serving. And so she served him by protecting these spies, and she was rewarded not just by the Israelites, but by God himself for having done so. Father, help our faith to be a faith of courage and recognition of your power and your love as well. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.